Now, Rand Paul was talking to CNBC anchor Kelly Evans about a myriad of different issues on Monday, and the interview got on some questions about vaccines. Now, if you can remember, vaccines are a bit of a contentious issue because there's been a measles outbreak, which measles is entirely preventable if you vaccinate your kids. And when talking about this whole thing, well, Rand Paul seems to think that this is a issue of freedom. Let's listen.
Did you really just say to Laura Ingraham that you think most vaccines in this country should be, quote, voluntary?
Well, I guess being for freedom would be really unusual. I guess I don't understand the point, why that would be controversial.
Senator, maybe you're not aware, but there's a huge problem right now with Disney theme parks having to close down because of mumps, not enough children being vaccinated against measles, mumps, and rubella because their parents, for whatever reason, have decided that it is voluntary.
Here's the thing is that I think vaccines are one of the greatest medical breakthroughs that we had. I'm a big fan and a great fan of the history of the development of the smallpox vaccine, for example. But, for most of our history, they have been voluntary. So I don't think I'm arguing for anything out of the ordinary. We're arguing for what most of our history has had.
I understand that you're all for the choice, but again, if we're left in a situation where, diseases that were once almost wiped out are now coming back because people are deciding not to vaccinate their kids, isn't that a problem?
I don't think there's anything extraordinary about resorting to freedom.
Freedom. Should do a freedom counter on Rand Paul. Freedom. Freedom means I get to spread diseases everywhere that are entirely preventable. Freedom. That's the argument. Freedom. Oh, okay. Sure, you're spreading dangerous diseases that we nearly wiped out with vaccination. But you know what? We shouldn't. We should have a choice not to do that based on misinformation because freedom. Freedom. We should have the freedom. Now, I'm of the mind that your freedom stops when it infringes upon someone else's freedom. And this is where the vaccine thing, like when I come across as a big government status. Because I think that everybody should have to get vaccines unless the exceptions where it makes you sick, like it actually has an adverse effect on you, or you have a disease like leukemia or something like that. Something where you can't actually safely get a vaccine. Exceptions, right? Exceptions. And that's why it's also so important for everybody to get a vaccine. Because it protects the people who can't. But no, Rand Paul says, well, we traditionally did that. We traditionally let, it be a choice, to let it be optional. So since we traditionally did it, that means it's okay to do it now. We also traditionally had large rates of polio and smallpox. But you know what? Since we had a lot of people vaccinating, pretty much everybody, whether by choice or not, we got rid of them. And when you give people the choice not to vaccinate, and you let hacks like Jenny McCarthy and that Andrew Wakefield publish bullshit studies that, by the way, were retracted, and you get it into people's heads that vaccines cause autism, which they don't, suddenly you've got, people that are not making correct decisions based on factual information. And this is where Rand Paul also ran into a bit of trouble. Let's listen to this.
I've heard of many tragic cases of walking, talking, normal children who wound up with profound mental disorders after vaccines.
No, that's fucking ridiculous. It has nothing to do with it. And what's funny is that Rand Paul walked it back. He's like, well, I didn't actually mean that it caused those things. No, they're related because they're about the same time. They're connected by time. I did not allege causation. Well, gee, thanks for coming out and saying that. Although it sounded a lot like you were saying that they were related, why would you even bring up that point if you didn't try to tie that in? You see, I'm not buying it, but I think he's trying to appear not crazy. Bit too late. A little too late. But he says, like, no, trust me, get your vaccines. Like, it's funny because he says he believes in getting a vaccine. and, tweeted pictures of him getting a booster shot and, vaccinates his kids. But it's like freedom. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's a great idea. You should do it, but, you don't have to. But that defeats the whole point. You're supposed to vaccinate your kids and maintain herd immunity. Like, this isn't a freedom libertarian issue. It's just a public health issue. And on issues of public health, you kind of have to give up a little bit of that choice, that freedom, in order to ensure that everybody around you is also protected, as well as yourself, and that you protect the weakest among us. Just my crazy thoughts.